I'm Chris Rasky with GCC, and I'm currently the treasurer for FPDA. And we're looking forward to seeing as many people as possible next month at the summit in Greenville. And today we've got a wonderful keynote speaker. She's a retired U.S. Navy captain and former regimental commodore. She's built bases in the middle of Afghan deserts filled with insurgents, and built a bridge over the Euphrates River in the Iraq War. But her most fun job was drilling and blasting in Alaska, and that was in the winter. A PhD in engineering who formed a company that designs plans for bridges, buildings, and nuclear power plants around the world to withstand earthquake forces. She's overcome numerous obstacles, imposter syndrome, and the fear of failure to lead teams from 4 to 1,800. And when she's not chasing earthquakes, she's chasing her 220-pound dogs around the park. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Jen Donahue.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. While we're at it and we're just getting started, go ahead and pop into the chat. I'd love to know where you all are coming from. Looks like we have a couple people from North Carolina already, but really would love to see where you all are from. So getting started with the unity paradox, I want to bring you back to the very, very beginning. And for me, that was the 1983 Barbie dream house. You see, when I was a little girl, I saved up all of my allowance. I did extra chores. I washed the dishes every night, and my room was spotless. I saved up every penny I could, and I remember that feeling of finally being able to go to Toys R Us and purchase this enormous box. I brought it home on a weekend and played with it the entire time. In fact, when Monday morning rolled around, I did something a bit drastic. I lied to my mother. I told her I was sick, too sick to go to school, and I knew that if I complained enough, I'd be able to stay home alone, undisturbed by others, and continually play with the dream house. Y'all, I lied to my mother. I risked everything. I risked getting caught. I risked getting grounded for life. I risked losing the dream house. But more importantly, I risked losing the faith and trust of my mother. Now, this is not my finest moment, so please don't judge me too harshly. But this is what you need to understand. The dream house, it wasn't for Barbie. Oh, it was so much more than that. Because this is what I would do, is I would build it, and then I would tear it down, and then I would reconstruct it, and then I would demolish it. Over and over again. Barbie never actually got to live in the dream house because it was always under renovation. Looking back, I realized this is one of those pivotal moments in my life. I'm an engineer, and I love to build. This sparked an interest and a passion in me that I didn't even know I had at that age. And this is what I'd like you to do today. I'd like you to start to think back, way back, and start to remember some of those moments that have helped define who you are today. I've had tons of friends who were into Legos and erector sets and Lincoln Logs. They all got into the construction industry, became engineers or architects. A very good friend of mine, she used to build model airplanes, and she became an Air Force pilot. Start to think back. What were those moments that have helped define you? Were you really good at math, and so you designed a bunch of spreadsheets, and now you're in accounting? Or maybe you're just really good at talking to people, and you got into sales. Because that same unadulterated joy that we had as kids, it still lives in us, but it's just maybe been covered over by years of adulthood, or maybe working in our industry. Now, as kids, things seemed pretty easy, but as adults, we know that things are a lot harder, especially in business. Now, I'm one of those people who loves to study, and I've been looking at some of the companies that have grown the fastest over the last 5 years. And this is what I have found. So we all know that there is a difference between leadership and management. Leadership is all about the mindset. Management has to deal with all the tools and processes and systems and methods that we need in order to get a job done. We need both of these. But over the last couple decades, what we have found is that management has played a larger role in business. It's been all about the bottom line. It's all about making money. But as I said, I've been doing a lot of research and looking at the companies that are growing the fastest, the ones that have the ability to retain their people. And what I found there is that they have put leadership over management. For them, it's all about the client and making sure they come back. But more importantly, it's about making sure that they retain their people. They want to make sure that there's an environment that people want to keep coming back to. These are the ones that aren't worried about having to go and hire and retrain, onboard, get people up to speed because their people are staying with them. For them, it's about maintaining their clients and their customers. Profit is more of a byproduct of all of this. And these are the ones that are growing the fastest in all of the industries that are out there today. Which brings me to the Warrior Framework. Now, I did 27 years in the United States Navy, leading teams between 4 and 1,800. And during those times, I was a civilian on and off many times. I just kept getting called back to active duty several times to go to Iraq and Afghanistan. But what I'd like to do is show you something that works in the companies that I own, and also that is working in several others as well. So first off, for the Warrior Framework, you need preparation. And the preparation phase has two parts. And you go around and around in these two parts until you have it really solid. If you have somebody new come on, they go back into the preparation and they go through the cycle. When there's some kind of crisis, some type of disruption, that's when we go into the execution phase. And the execution phase has 3 pieces. And so we'll go over these as well. And you just keep going through and you iterate with each time you have a crisis. So let's first start with preparation. And the very first piece of that has to deal with getting to know your people. And so as a fun experiment, what I'd like to do is in the chat, let me know if you're in charge of 1 to 5 people. If so, just write in yes. Okay, let's say that you're in charge of between 5 and 20. Go ahead and put in yes to that. All right, 20 to 100. I know that's a big leap. Anybody between 20 and 100, go ahead and write in yes. Okay, anybody over 100? So now I'm going to just ask you 2 more questions. Do you know all of their names? If so, write in yes. Now here's the most important of them all. For each one of those personnel, do you know their goals and aspirations? If yes, go ahead and type it in. We're probably finding that that question probably had fewer yeses than knowing their names. And you might think, you know what, I'm in charge of 120 people. How am I ever going to remember all of their names and what their goals and aspirations are? Well, I'd like to introduce you to Rudy. Now, Rudy was the president and CEO of a company that I used to work for. When I first got there, there was about 500 personnel. So I was on the West Coast in San Francisco, and he was in Atlanta. Now, 5 months into the job, Rudy had to fly from Atlanta out to the San Francisco Bay Area. He came into my office and says, "Hey, Jen, I'm so glad that you've come to work here." Okay, so first off, I'm shocked because the president and the CEO of the company came into my office knew my name and actually had something nice to say. And then we went on and had this fantastic conversation. He said, Jen, it's been really great talking to you, but I need to go talk to somebody down the hall. So I'm feeling kind of like, wow, this is awesome. The president and CEO came into my office. About 8 months go by, and Rudy has to fly from Atlanta back out to the San Francisco Bay Area again. And he came back in my office. And he says, hey, Jen, great to see you again. Now, I'm used to him like knowing my name now because this is twice. And then he says, hey, how's your husband Sean doing? And I really did a double take because I was thinking, oh my gosh, the president and the CEO of the company knows my husband's name. And I was like, oh, Rudy, we're doing great. Actually, we just had our anniversary. And he says, that's fantastic. And then he says, hey, how's that project that you're working on in Alaska where you're looking at the liquefaction susceptibility? Okay, I work on about 5 to 6 different projects at any one time. And this isn't my biggest project. It's kind of the coolest project, but I guess I had talked to Rudy about this at one point. And so I told him, hey, Rudy, you know what? It's going great. We are learning so much about the different soils in Anchorage, and this is really going to help the building codes going forward. And he says, Jen, that's great. Hey, I want you to write a journal paper about this. I think this is really important, especially to get your name out there. Okay, this is crazy because as engineers, it is so important for us to have our work out there in peer-reviewed journals. It shows that we're interested in our professional development. And then he says, Jen, this has been a great conversation. You're doing good. I'm going to go talk to some people down the hall. Okay, so I am flabbergasted. I go into the break room and I find one of my colleagues and I talk to him and I say, you will not believe what just happened. Rudy came into my office and he remembered my name. He remembered my husband's name. He remembered what project I was working on. And he seems interested in my professional development. He knows a lot about me. He's not a stalker, is he? And my colleague also chuckled and he said, no, he has this trick. And what he does is he has note cards for each person in the company. And he has their name on it and any information that he has found along the way. So when he flies from Atlanta out to the San Francisco Bay Area, he grabs that stack off the credenza or wherever he has it, and on the plane, he starts to read through what he's written. And then at the end of the day, he updates those cards based on those conversations. And I just thought, wow, this is so incredible that he wants to do this. And I called him a couple of years ago and I said, Rudy, this is the most amazing trick that you have with the note cards. He said, Jen, it was never a trick. I was afraid that I was going to forget some of the important conversations I had had with my employees. And he finished it up with this. Everyone, family, commitment. I will tell you that we were some of the most loyal employees that you would ever find because it started with Rudy and it trickled down through the entire organization. We all felt like, you know what, this is a family. We are able to do what we can because of this. During the 4 years I worked there, we went from 500 to 1,200 employees. That's a huge amount of growth because people had found out about Rudy and the culture that he had created. And honestly, I think we were like trying to beat people off with sticks. That's what it means to really to get to know your people. Now realize Rudy had his note cards, but think of everything that we have at our disposal. I've heard people talk about using spreadsheets to track this information. We have our phones, we have tablets, we have our computers. I actually have little sticky notes. I have one right below my monitor right here so I can remember Momo and Coco. That's my assistant's cats. We have all of these different ways that we can get to know our personnel. And it really starts with just asking questions. You don't have to get all personal with people if they don't feel comfortable with it, but try to find some kind of common ground. Maybe it's a sports team that you both like. Maybe it's a type of music, but also ask those harder questions. What are the things that motivate them to get up in the morning and come and work with you? What are their strengths? What can you do to help them overcome their obstacles? Because as leaders, it's our job to help them overcome those so that they can be better themselves. As leaders, it's no longer about us. It's about our people and our team and creating the best team that we can. Which brings me to the unity paradox. And let me explain what that is. Now, there's a unity of purpose. If we have the entire organization all with the same goals, all with the same vision, we can move forward and we have a really good chance of success. The best case study of this was in the 1960s with NASA. President John F. Kennedy was out strolling around through NASA and he was talking to people and he came across a janitor. And he asked that janitor, "What is your job here?" The janitor responded, "I'm here to help put a man on the moon." He was a janitor. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't an engineer. He wasn't a mechanic working on the rockets. He was a janitor. But he knew and understood what his part was in the whole. He knew that that one little piece was still needed in the bigger organization because everybody had the vision of moving forward with a unity of purpose so that they could have success. Start thinking about your own organization. Maybe you're the CEO. Have you let everybody know what your vision is? Maybe you're just a department head, or maybe you're a team lead. You're still allowed to have a vision for that as well. What is the vision for your team? Maybe it's just the three of you, but have a vision for that team and make sure that they all know and understand. Now, one of the things I also like to do is I like to interview people. And I keep running across the same question of how do we create unity out of individualism? Everybody wants to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged for what they do. So if we have a bunch of individuals running around, how do we create unity out of that? So I started to ask questions. I've interviewed people in the C-suite, CFOs, CEOs, presidents, owners. And then I've also interviewed people who are at the management level and below, team leads, managers, frontline managers. And I asked them a couple of simple questions. What would make you happy? What would make you successful? When I interviewed the people who were in the C-suite, a lot of times I got answers that started with this: the staff, the organization. The organization meets its Q4 financial goals. Okay. And this is pretty typical because on the most part, people in the C-suite are looking up and they're looking out strategically. Where is my company going to be in 5 years? But when I started to interview the managers and below, I got answers that started with this: my team, my employees, my people. I want my team to be the most highly trained out of anybody here in the corporation. And of course, because managers are more looking at people and they're looking down and in, this makes a lot more sense. But because I know who actually answered all of these surveys, those that were in the C-suite that also used these answers were in the organizations that were growing the fastest. They had figured out a way to not only look strategically up and out, but also make sure that they maintain their people and that understanding of, you know what, I am responsible for them. They're my people. Rudy was one of these people. So when we start to talk about individualism, really what it is I want you to start to harness whatever that is when you're asking those questions about what makes somebody great. You know, maybe they just absolutely love Working on spreadsheets. Okay, maybe you need to find a way that you can say, hey, you know what? You're my best spreadsheet person. This is what you're going to do. Whatever that might be. Ask people what do they want to do? And harness that. Because what you're going to do is you're going to get enhanced creativity out of that. If you say, hey, you know what, Bob, you are the best person that I know that is really good at sales. I want you to just concentrate on sales. You know what? That person is going to have ownership of that. They're going to have buy-in. And so they're going to probably think, you know what? I'm going to try to find my best way to do this. You're going to have better problem solving. Because if you're trying to bring everybody in and you're actually harnessing each of those individuals and what they bring to the fight, as opposed to just grouping everybody together, you're going to have better problem solving. You're also going to probably have increased engagement. I like to do this in person, and I ask somebody what they love to do. And if I say, hey, you're really good at this, can you do more of it? A lot of times those people are like, heck yeah, I would love to do this. And you know what? They show up and they're engaged and they want to be there and they want to show you that, yes, I can do this. Thank you for having some faith in me. So I would argue that the best way to get to success is to have that unity of purpose. You have to have the ability to pull everybody together, but it starts with individualism and harnessing the best in every single person that you have on your team. I don't think you can get there otherwise, because if you're bringing out the best in everybody, you're probably going to be bringing out the best in your organization. And make sure that people know what that vision is. Don't just go up to someone and say, here's my vision. Here's where you fit into it. That doesn't work as well. Go up to them and tell them, hey, this is my vision. And then ask them, how do you fit into the vision? Now they know the vision. They're going to try to figure out how do they best fit into it. And again, now they have buy-in. And it's upon them to help create your vision.
Yeah.
Now, the second piece of this has to do with trust. Now, the two of these, get to know your people, create trust. Get to know your people, create trust. Go through this again and again and again and strengthen this piece. But let's talk about some of the reasons why people might not want to trust. First one is, I've been burned before. If anybody's been burned before in work, just go ahead and type that into the chat, because there's probably a lot of people. And maybe it's in life, maybe it's not at work. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple of super secret military terminologies that kind of go with each one of these. So if you're in the military or you were in the military, please don't come and find me and rat me out for telling you all this. Now, in every organization where you feel like you've been burned before, we have basically what we call the Blue Falcon. Now, the military, we love our acronyms, and so it's BF. And so I'm going to keep this PG-13 as basically the buddy effer. This is that person that's in your organization that always says they're going to do something and they don't. They're the ones that show up late for formation. They're the ones that throw you under the bus, even though you might not have had anything to do with whatever's going on. Everybody seems to have this blue falcon within their midst, and it's really hard to trust them. And you know what? It might not necessarily just be somebody who works for you. I actually had a boss once that was a blue falcon. Me and my teammates had come up with this great idea for the client. We worked it up. We gave it to my boss. He looked at it, he thought that was great, and he brought it to the client. And the client loved it. And my boss never said one word about me or my team. My boss wound up getting a raise and a promotion. How often do you think me or my team will ever go back to him with a good idea? That's what being a blue falcon is. You know, you've been burned before. It's really, really hard to try to trust again when you've been burned. Now, the second reason why we might not necessarily trust at work is because maybe you're new. And so in the military, we call this person the FNG, the effing new guy or girl. And look, we've all been the FNG at one point. Probably The very first time that you came to your organization, you were the FNG. Maybe you're new to a position of authority. You're the FNG. A lot of times when you're the FNG, you know what? It's really, really hard to trust people because you don't know them. You have a lot of pressure on you. It's all sitting on your shoulders that you have to perform, that you were the right person for the job. So a lot of times when you're the FNG, a lot of times we hold everything really close and we don't delegate out because we don't know who to delegate to. So we just say, I'll do it myself. Now, the third reason why we might not necessarily trust at work, because it can be terrifying. A lot of times it's terrifying when you are the HMIFC, the head mofo in charge. Now, this is actually a term of endearment. Like, oh, you're the new HMFIC? Congratulations. But the reason why it's terrifying is that now you're in charge of everything. Maybe you're in charge of your department. I was in charge of a battalion of 800 people, and it can be terrifying to trust people. God forbid the wheels fall off the bus. How would this reflect on me? Will we be able to get the project done on time and on budget? And so a lot of times when we're the HMFIC, it's really, really hard to let go. Those that are the HMFIC often are micromanagers because they're basically in everybody's business all the time to make sure that things go right. But it doesn't matter if you're dealing with the Blue Falcon, if you're the FNG, or you're the HMFIC. If you're on the other side of that coin, it all looks the same. You're not being trusted. Now, everybody's always said that trust is a two-way street. I don't believe this. I believe you might be able to get here someday, but this is not where you start. If you think about roads, think about as leaders, we need to get to the on-ramp first. We need to show trust in order to have it returned. I've also had people tell me, you know what, you need to meet me halfway. If that's the case, you're going to wind up like this. And as an engineer, this is terrifying. Look at this poor man's hard hat. We are all coming from different directions. We all have different trajectories. And we all have our own baggage. If you tell somebody, you know what, you need to meet me halfway, you're probably going to wind up with this. You'll probably never get there. So I want you to really think hard about trust. And think about, have you ever been in a business relationship where you were not trusted? And I want you to think about how that made you feel. So just in the chat, if you will, please go in and it's like, if you were ever in a business relationship where you were not trusted, how did that make you feel? I can't see the chat, but I'm really hoping that nobody's able to put anything in there because they've never experienced this. My guess is that there probably is a couple people who have. So if you're one of those people who has not been trusted, a lot of times it might feel something like this. You feel undervalued, you feel frustrated, useless. Why do I even go to work? My manager is just going to be looking over the cubicle at me the entire time. You know, some people are like, that's why they quit. They go find somebody else where they might be trusted. Who wants to work like this? We owe it to our people so they don't feel like this whenever they're there. But let's look a little bit more positively. Have you been in a business relationship where you were trusted? How did that make you feel? Go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm hoping that there's a lot more people who are able to respond to this. Because a lot of times it's going to feel like this, that you feel empowered, that you can be creative, you can do what you know that you were supposed to do. That's what it means to feel trusted when you're at work. That's what we need to strive towards for our people. They want to be secure when they come to work. They want to be unstoppable. That's what it means to be trusted. Because trust is going to be all about an autonomy. You know what? They can sit there and they can do the work that they know that they're supposed to do. Open communications. When things go sideways, You want them to be able to come and talk to you. That's very important because now you're able to do that a lot more quickly. They can come to you knowing that you're not just going to snap their head off. You can solve problems together more quickly. Also, you know what? They have a supportive environment. People feel like, you know what? I can do my job. That's how you retain your personnel. So this is the framework for preparation. Just go through this over and over. This is so important. That's why I'm spending so much time on this one piece. And so pulling it all together, I'll give you a quick story. So as I said, I was the battalion commander. We were going to Afghanistan. By the way, that's me. Now in the Navy, there's several things that you can do. You can fly planes, you can go on submarines, you can go on ships, but there's also land-based elements called CBs, and we build, typically for the Marines. Now in Afghanistan, we had the additional task of helping the Afghans learn how to build, because everybody needs somebody who knows how to build bases, repair roads, take care of bridges, and drill water wells. I had the most incredible job. I was there to help give advice to the Afghan general. Me, a woman, giving advice to a male general, especially given, how a lot of the females are treated in Afghanistan. Well, one day we're going out there and the interpreter says, the general doesn't want to see you today. We think, okay, that's fine. The next day, he says, the general still doesn't want to see you today. This is weird. The third day, he says, the general is ready to see you, but just make sure that your guardian angels are more on point than normal. And I thought, that's weird. Why would I need my personal security detachment to be more alert than they normally are? And he says, well, there were some insurgents that had infiltrated his unit and were planning to kidnap you, do horrible things to you, and then kill you. All right, my brain automatically went into overdrive. There was shock, disbelief, anger, rage, but also fear. And I started to rationalize, oh man, should I actually go back out there again? What if I make the wrong decision? I go back out there and they kill me. Or worse, what if they kill some of my people? How will I ever answer to their family that I screwed up? But what if I stay here? We're never going to get the job done, and people might think I'm a coward. But then I started to really look at my team, and I realized, hey, you know what? We've been through a lot so far. So I took a deep breath, and I told the interpreter, we'll be out there. And we went out that day, and the next, until the end of deployment. But I will tell you that if I did not have complete and utter trust in that team, my answer would have probably been very different. I looked at everything that we had done together. I mean, yeah, we had already probably been shot at several times, and I had made some pretty hard decisions. This was probably the hardest one. But I trusted my team, and they trusted me back. That's what that foundation is all about. So we talked about preparation. Now we're going to talk about execution. Let's talk about some type of event, a disruption, a crisis. We go into the execution side of the framework. And there's 3 parts of this. The very first part has to do with acting. Just act. It's more of the realization that you will decide to act. Now, what is a disruption or a crisis or an event? A lot of people say that it might be AI. But many times we don't act because we don't know where we're going. Like, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Make the conscious decision to act. And like I said, AI is something that is really becoming prevalent in our society. Many people have decided to just go ahead and they're just going to sit on their hands. And they're going to look over at their competitors and see what they're all doing first. Meanwhile, their competitors are figuring out how to do this. and they're already racing ahead, while the people who are sitting on it now have to catch up. Just make the conscious decision to act. Don't wait. The fastest growing companies are the ones that just make the decision to act. And a lot of times because of fear, we don't know what to do. Now, we have many fears, but I'll give you one of mine. Hummingbirds. I know you think they're cute as they fly from flower to flower, that pointy little beak. Has anyone ever had a hummingbird come up close to their eyes? I'm afraid it's going to poke my eyes out with that pointy little beak. And I know that it's silly. It's called columprophobia. I looked it up. But I also looked it up and found that hummingbirds don't actually attack humans. So here's a couple more fun facts about fear. Did you know that almost 73% of the entire population is afraid of spiders? It's either spiders or snakes. Anybody? You can put it in the chat. 1/3 of the populace is afraid of flying. 9% of the populace is afraid of giving up chocolate. I thought that was going to be higher. And 3% of the populace is afraid of salads. Who knew? But apparently it's just the leafy green kind. Macaroni salad totally passes the test. Now, I'm giving you these facts about fear because I have one more that I want to tell you about. And it's just that 48% of the populace never takes that decision to act, to take that first step because of the fear of failure. 48%. And if you own your own business, it's even higher, it's 90%. Look, we all have fears, but just make the decision to act. And what you can do is you can take in this next step. But just remember, you will get to where you need to go, but you have to take those steps. So our next piece has everything to do with wargaming. I want you to take whatever that problem is. Now, you know your team. You trust your team. Give that problem to your team. Let them go and let them wargame it. Let them experiment. Let them iterate. Let them pivot. Let them go through this cycle as many times as they need to try to come up with a solution. But here's the important part. Give them a time limit. But let them go through the cycle as many times as they need to, and then let them hand you the results. Step back. Don't interfere. Let them poke holes in it and come up with a solution. But in it, let's say get to an 80% solution. And after that, I'd like you to launch, even at 80%. Because you see, if you try to get to 100% solution for whatever that problem is, where you started from a couple weeks ago, the environment has changed. So get to at least an 80% solution. Get it out there. Try it out. When you find other problems, you go back through the cycle again. You act on whatever that problem is. You wargame it. You fix the problems, and then you launch it again. Get to 80%. Now, if you're doing brain surgery, that's not what I'm asking you. Please get to 100% as much as possible. But I'm talking about those crises, those dilemmas, those projects that you need to figure out. Go through this as many times as you need to. But always remember, you have to go back to the preparation and that foundation of knowing and trusting your personnel. So back to that Monday morning, as I was looking up at my ginormous Barbie house, already starting to show the signs of multiple reconstructions, I realized it wasn't perfect. So I did something daring and a little scary. I jumped up, ran down the hall, and came back armed with a pair of scissors and Scotch tape. And I very carefully started to cut the floors apart. And then I cut the rooms apart. And as all the parts and pieces lay before me, I realized I can build this back better than the manufacturer ever intended, because I love to build. And just like this Barbie house, we can rebuild ourselves and our organizations over and over again, refining as we go. We can try something daring, a little scary and outside our comfort zone, to elevate ourselves and our teams just that much more. We have the ability to overcome the obstacles that are standing in our way. And we also have the ability to make things better than they are today. Thank you. Please join me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear your own stories. I would love to hear how you are building teams. I love that kind of thing. So please join me on LinkedIn. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it back over.
Thanks so much, Jen. That was really great. Does anyone have any questions? None at all?
Oh, looks like Will Wood.
Yep, that's me. Jen, have you written a book yet on this? On just as far as the different experiences you shared and anything like that?
I have. Actually, it's out March 24th of 26.
Awesome.
Please get with me on LinkedIn. I'll give you all of the information that you need in order to pre-order it if you like.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Good question. Anybody else?
I appreciate the topic. This was a great content. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's like if I could help one person just a tiny amount, that's what it's worth. And it looks like, Will, you're also afraid of salads.
That's funny. All right. Well, unless there's any other comments or questions, thank you so much, Jen, for your time today and everybody else that's here. We really appreciate it. And we hope we'll see you at the next webinar on November 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great, Jen. Thank you again.
Absolutely. And I have 1 minute to spare.
Yeah. I will have this on our website if for any reason you want to review it or direct anyone to it. And hopefully I'll have it done today, but maybe tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you. I hope that this has been helpful for a couple folks. And with that, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.